What's up? Welcome to Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Danny, everybody. Randy, what's up, Randy?
Yo, Danny.
Okay, so I had this thought the other day, and just bear with me, I guess, and see what you think. So I was thinking, because I read too much sci-fi for sure, and this is why I think these things late at night. But I was thinking, like, what makes us conscious, and what role do memories play in that? Because, like, okay, so
Ooh.
if our brain is a connection of neural pathways, right, and the things that we think, the things that we feel, our actions are a consequence of neurons being connected in certain relationships, right? Like I like chocolate, I have ice cream, I like chocolate ice cream, right? There's a neural thing that makes it, right? So now you have a thing there that tells you that, so you know. What I was thinking was like, well, how important are memories then? Because if you scanned, imagine if you scanned somebody's brain, if we could scan it perfectly, right? And I can make a copy of your brain and start over from now, just like blank. You have no memories, but you have all the same neural connections. Wouldn't that new individual then experience reality the same way as you because they have the same positive, negative, basically connections dictating like what choices they'd make in certain situations. So even without memory, it wouldn't really, they'd still be the same person and then they'd form memories moving forward. And
Almost like Blade Runner.
kind of, yeah, right? Similar to that sort of something like that. And this is where, obviously where this comes from because forget what I was reading exactly, but you know, that because consciousness has always been this like weird problem where we don't really, a lot of people want to assume that there's something more than the physical, right? That explains it away. But there's also, it's hard because even the physical itself doesn't seem to be enough to explain it. And maybe we're missing something, right? So there's a branch in philosophy called physicalism, which is literally the idea that, it destroys the mind-body problem by saying everything is physical. So all thoughts, all things are just, neurons firing in the brain, right? It's all a consequence of that. There's no mysterious mind realm. Like if you guys are familiar with the mind-body dualism problem, right? That was like Descartes tried to solve that with the pituitary gland, that connects the soul basically in the body. Because the problem of that is like if the mind is different than body, how does actions occur? How does it influence the physical realm if it's something outside of the physical, right?
Yeah, and they talk about that in physics with like the multiple dimensions. Like if you imagine two dimensions being a sheet of paper, and then you have a ball 3 dimensions passing through it, when it's on the paper, it's only ever going to look like a circle.
Yeah.
But it's not a circle, it's a sphere. And so that stuff is crazy in terms
The
of, I
dimensions are
mean,
weird too, because from that perspective too, like as you add dimensions, you have so much more data
mhm.
present in the thing. Like it's so strange, and but you can't experience them from the perspective of the lower dimension. I always found that really odd.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. And it's an interesting one because you look at like identical twins, okay? Now, even though they share the same genes, or I think most of
I think most of
50% of it,
them,
or
right, or
all no,
something.
actually, yeah, they share the same genes, and but they can have different life experiences. Even if they have the same, like let's say they both have an alcoholic father, one of them would make that the reason why they're going to be an alcoholic, and that's the way they go down the path of life. The other person is going to say, "Well, I'm never going to do that," and they go on to become president or something like that. And so
Well,
there's
it's
there's this
minor
whole concept
differences,
of
right,
nature
too.
versus nurture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, minor differences in like their experiences throughout life, maybe even like things that happen in school and stuff might change those neural connections, which would change their character slightly. But yeah, I just was
I
thinking about that because I was like, is there a difference really? I mean, like, if our because I always thought, like, at least for me, like consciousness, I always thought of as like something that was synthetic, that's created as we go, right?
hmm
So like, I always like as much as I dislike most of his theory, Kant's conception of consciousness I always liked. There's this idea that like that conscious I is a synthetic manifestation created through experience. That we form this conception of the I from experience and put it together, kind of. We make it our
hmm
own, but it's not real. There's nothing like behind it.
it's not real, and it can change too. Like I know I keep talking about this guy all the time because I'm reading his books nonstop. But like David Burns, he's got a whole bunch of books on anxiety, depression, the most interesting books I've read in a long, long time. But he'll see patients who've been depressed or anxious for like 10 plus years, decades. Like they'll have fears of doing things like even going outside for like decades, or fears of germs and stuff like that for decades. And then he'll have a 2 hour session with them and completely cure it, like gone, where they can't even see the world the same way. They have the same memories, They had
Yeah.
all the same memories leading up, but all of a sudden he's changed the way that they think, and now those memories mean something completely different
Well,
to them.
here's the other thing I was thinking, and glad you brought that up because when we think of memory, like memory is one, it's notoriously faulty. So like that is true. We generally don't remember things as they actually happened because one, when they happen, we have an interpretation of it to begin with. And then as we remember it and go back to it based on whether it's good or bad, that interpretation tends to get emphasized. So like if it was a good vacation and you go back to that memory, it's going to get better and better kind of as the years go by, right? Because you keep growing that experience. Every time you revisit it, you kind of like push that level of positivity up almost.
Mhm.
Likewise, if it's bad, right? You make it worse. So our memories are not great. And I know like in my own life too, if I look back to myself when I was younger, like, yes, I'm still the same person in the sense that there's that continuity. But like a lot of those memories, experiences, and stuff, like they have influenced who I became, but it's not like they're like necessary now for who I am either. I don't even remember all of it, right? Like a lot of it you forget. So how important is it? Is it just those pathways that make the consciousness? And then the larger question I was thinking about too was like if you had those two people, would they do the exact same thing then? Like if you threw them into the world with the one with the memories and the one without the memories, do identical things, and then yeah.
I think even if people had the same memories, they would not do identical things. Eh, And
I think it's the pathways, the neural connections that matter, not the memories.
and because you still like even if you have the same exact past, there's no way on earth that you can still have the same future. Like I remember when I went to veterinary school, it like every maybe not everyone. I was very concerned about
Everyone.
getting the optimal. Yeah, probably not everybody. Other people could relax and enjoy their lives, but I was very concerned on getting the best veterinary education that I could because I didn't want to be a bad doctor. And so like I remember one of our professors saying to us, there's no way that you can have the best education. Everybody, every single person who's ever gone to the school has a totally different education because you study what you study, but you learn some things, you don't learn other things. You're naturally gifted in some things, you're not in other things. And so everybody when they graduate has a completely different education and ends up being a completely different doctor. But that's okay.
Yeah, and learning's funny too because just like everything else in life, like we're more likely, and this goes back to the neural connections, right? We're more likely to remember things that interest us or that catch our eye for whatever reason, right? So like we can both read the same book and we'll probably get different things out of it because we're coming at it from a different perspective of positives and negatives, right? I mean, that's gonna happen. So I think that's a really good way to look at it. Like all of our life experiences are like that. They're all gonna be somehow slightly different. And that's where I think, the more I was thinking about it, the more I was like, well, maybe it seems to be just like physically based, like, and almost like you form these certain pathways and logical, like to use a computer analogy, I guess like logical conditions and stuff. And those then inform the future choices, decisions, and things like that, because that's the base programming you have to work with essentially.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not even like you know how sometimes your brain will like edit out things that aren't there. Like you'll be looking for your keys and they're on the table right in front of you, but you
Okay,
keep looking and you can't find them.
like it's not even like it'll edit out things. It's like 50% of what we actually see is just made up by the brain because it's quicker.
Yeah,
And most of that
yeah.
stuff is BS. Most of the things we don't need most of the time, if you think about it, we really don't need that detailed information. We need a general
Hmm.
idea. That's why you don't see your keys because your brain's like, that's the table. It looks like this.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it, right? That it can just conjure this image.
Well, it's the same thing with people because like I had two experiences this week where like I very intentionally wrote a specific text message that included some information for people. And like it was two separate things. So it's not like it was a poorly worded one-time thing, but like both times the person on the other end of the communication completely missed what I put in the first message. And I was just like I was thinking to myself, am I that bad at like
No.
relaying information to somebody else? Are people just that distracted to where like they can't see the main piece of information in that? But I was
No,
just
I
like,
do
I
that
just
all
gotta
the
let it
time.
go. I
I
don't
do
know.
that constantly. I have this problem, and Anna gets pissed at me all the time because like she'll write something and stuff, and when I have this issue where like when I read things, I skim stuff horribly, especially if it's stuff like I don't like, not that I don't care about, but it's not like of immediate interest to me. I just skim it, and I don't even care if I'm right. So a lot of times I just
Yeah.
totally misread things completely, like just horribly. Like, and it's like, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do? And I know it's the case, but it is, I get it's frustrating sometimes because it's like I just
Yeah.
totally don't see it.
But is that's another reason why I don't think that even with the same memories, the same brain, and as close a possible future as you could have,
Oh yeah, well I was thinking,
I still don't think you would have the same experience.
no, that's fair. So the experiences
Because
might be
it's like
different.
if a butterfly flaps its wings somewhere, doesn't it cause a hurricane and
Oh, the
then
stupid
about to
butterfly
hit
thing.
Florida?
I mean, yeah, in some sense, right? Everything's connected. Yeah. Then it definitely hits Florida. And they call it Milton. The too soon.
Not the author, mind you.
No, not the author. I know. I made that. See, that's another case, right? Of like the experience thing. But it's funny too, I guess, because like the larger issue too is like our concept of self, like who we are. Is it just 'cause, like this is the other side of this was like, and this is I guess even more. I don't know. We live in the moment, right? So we can't exist in the future. We can't exist in the past. We exist now.
But
And it's
we
always
try
now.
our best to
We
do
try our
that.
best. We do try our best. But it's always now. It's never going to be, now becomes the,
Thank
later.
you, Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, right? And so if you copied the same person's brain, right? In that moment, are they the exact same person? Because if the neural connections
Like
are
the
all the same,
moment you put that stuff into their brain.
and you turn them on, right? That
Yeah.
moment, if they're
Okay,
identical,
I could say yes.
is the self identical? That's my question
Yep.
because it's like, would their sense of self be the same? Would they, and this is the other more bizarre question that I had too. It's like, if you can, would they have memories because they have the neural
Well,
connections? Would there
only
be
only as
some
soon as they
shred?
think would they be the same self, because that's when the self exists, when you say I
Yes. Yeah.
am this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Without thought, it wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
I think, therefore I suffer. That's what Descartes said, right?
Hmm. I think, therefore, it's hard and
Yeah.
everything sucks.
Yeah.
Hey, Descartes famous for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's weird though. And it's like,
So
and
what sci-fi book were you reading where it got you thinking
I
about
don't
this
even
stuff?
remember. That's the worst part. So
Uh,
this is what happened. So I read a lot of sci-fi. So I think it was more just that I read sci-fi. But one of the books I had been reading, oh, it was a short story. I got the Asimov uh
mm,
journal, right?
yeah.
And so it's a lot of short stories of sci-fi, and I was reading a bunch of them because I got a bunch of the copies. So I was reading like back-to-back short stories. But one of them, I think it was in that was where they were doing like it was like a short story, but it was like a teleportation thing. They were going to work real far away. They could teleport, but they couldn't move a physical person. So it was they were talking about the information, right? So like you break the person down, the information, scan them, send, reconfigure, whatever. You know, there
Hmm.
wasn't a ton of detail because it was a short story. But I think that's where I started to think about it. And then what happened was one night I woke up at like 2, couldn't fall back asleep, and then my brain just went there and I started thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought.
And it's
But
funny because I feel like humans, we always want to leave open this because we don't know everything. We know very little. Most of what we think we know is made up by us. The universe is crazy huge, crazy huge. So like it just seems like anything's possible. And to some extent it is,
mhm.
right? Like we don't know much at all. So I think on the one hand, when we talk of consciousness, I get why we want to like leave that little wiggle room for maybe it's this special thing beyond just the physical, because there's so much we just don't understand in the world, and that would make us, in some sense, I guess, be of a higher value, maybe, or just somehow
Okay, so
different. Just this. I don't know. Maybe
here's
that.
another thing. You know how people say like whales, they're so intelligent. You can like look at them and you can tell and they can communicate with all this stuff. And it's like when like when are we going to recognize that they actually do have consciousness, that probably in the same way that humans do? Like
Oh, I
just
thought you were
because
just gonna
we
start trashing whales. No,
yeah,
I was like,
these
here it comes,
dumb thing.
here
No,
it comes. He's like,
but
you
like
stupid
just like
idiots. No,
yeah, but it's just like because we understand our own communication, all of a sudden we think we have
I
consciousness
know.
and
Isn't
we're the
that
greatest
funny?
thing ever.
I think
But
I
like
was,
dogs seem to be able to understand other dogs, and whales understand each other
and they
whales,
remember
and
stuff.
like
They also
just
remember
because
stuff, a
we
lot
don't
of stuff.
understand what they're saying doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we're the highest thing on this face of the planet.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was just having a conversation with Andy the other day about that. I was like, because I was like talking, we were playing with the dogs, and I was like, I always wondered like what their experience of the world is. And I was like, I really think it is pretty much identical to ours, except that when we were like 2. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
like they don't retain a ton of information. There's not like a ton, maybe not a ton. Like, could you, and I see that because my, you know, that you can see them forget stuff. Like you move a
Yeah.
bag and they bark at it because like, what's that? You know, like, so clearly not everything's processed well, but you know, it's probably the exact same to how we were then, you know, like maybe no long-term memory and stuff. And then like those bigger animals like whales, elephants, I mean, they've proven that they have incredible memories. They've proven that they get upset when like, you know, their young dies or something. It's probably a very similar experience. They just don't have vocal cords like ours. That's the
Hmm.
functional difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is funny, right? Like intelligence is probably a scale. And because everything, I mean, that's the other weird thing about humans, right? Like we know from a scientific standpoint, we're all evolution's kind of created all this stuff. And if we look at everything that's alive, it uses the same things over and over again. I mean, like, what do they
Yeah.
say? Like us and chimpanzees are like 99.8% shared DNA, and like us and like starfish is like 97% or something like ridiculous. Like,
And if I mean, if you look at the size and scale of the universe and everything out there, it's like a mathematical probability that there's something more intelligent than we are.
yeah, naturally, right? Because I mean,
So,
like, it's just, yeah, and it's funny to think that like we have this special thing, and I get why we did in the past because we just didn't understand a lot, and it was a way to
mhm,
explain things, right? But like, yeah, it does seem like consciousness is just that, and if it is, that means everything probably has it that has any level of intelligence, which is also interesting.
mhm. Yeah. Remember, I don't know if this is actually true. Like, you know how sometimes you have memories and you're not sure if they're true or if they're made up.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Well, like I remember when I was in elementary school or something like that, they were talking about these like worms or something that could eat other worms and they would like inherit their memory. And they knew this because they put them through mazes and then they would feed it to other worms and they would know the way through the maze. You
Never
ever hear
heard of
anything
that.
like that?
Nope, but if
Okay.
that's true, that's
I could be
awesome.
making it up.
Okay, well,
Like
one, if that's true, it's awesome. Two, worms are weird, and I wouldn't. There, there might be because, dude, there's those weird worms that live in like the permafrost that freeze every year, and
Yeah.
they have an antifreeze in their blood so they don't die. It's really
Oh,
weird. Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah, pretty
Yeah, so
interesting.
worms, I mean, if it's possible for worms, it could be possible for people too.
Don't go eating people's
Maybe.
brains though to try and gain their experience.
Yeah, I know.
Encourage.
You'll probably just get like Crutchfield-Jacobs disease and something else. Mad cow.
I'll get the courage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, I guess, right? You want anything else? Okay, so consciousness to brain, stuff like that. I don't know. Just random thoughts we had, thought we'd share. If you
It
like
was
this
a good one.
episode, it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I got that off my chest. I've been actually thinking about it quite a lot, so whatever. If you like this episode, we'll be back later this week with another one. Check us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe. Helps us out a lot. Until next time, though, later, Andy.
Later, Dane.